Sometimes Jesus is going to lead you into situations where they're uncomfortable, and this isn't to harm you, but it's to teach you something. I'm sure you've heard the story of Jesus walking on the water, and you probably thought that that was the biggest part of that story, but that means you missed something incredible. This is right after Jesus just fed the 5,000, and he instructs the disciples to get on the boat. And at first, that might seem like a simple instruction, but when you actually read the whole passage, you'll see that there was a deeper reason. You see, because Jesus was protecting them from the crowd's agenda. After the feeding of the 5,000, the crowd was overwhelmed and wanted to force Jesus to become a king, because the people were excited about the political Messiah who could feed so many and overthrow Rome. So Jesus immediately sent the disciples away, because if they would have stayed, they could have easily been swept up into the crowd's expectations. But Jesus wasn't here to build the earthly kingdom, and he was about to teach them something big. Because after he sends them into the boat, a storm arises, and they struggle all night. And this is the part Jesus comes walking on the water. And this moment was meant to reveal something deeper about who he is. In Mark 6, verses 52, it says something shocking. For they considered not the miracle of the loaves, because their heart was hardened. They had just watched Jesus multiply bread for thousands. They still didn't fully understand his divine authority. So the storm and the walking on the water became another lesson revealing his power. And this is where we see that Jesus sometimes sends us into those storms. And this part is really important, because the disciples weren't in the storm because they were disobedient. They were there because Jesus told them to go. And sometimes obedience to God is going to lead you into hard nights and struggles. But Jesus knew exactly where they were. And he wanted them to see him in a new way. So when he started walking on the water, he said something profound. "It is I, be not afraid." And that phrase, "it is I," in Greek translates to "I am," which is the same name that God used for himself in the Old Testament. So Jesus was revealing that the one that was walking on the water was not just the teacher, but God himself. So Jesus told them to get on the boat because he was leading them into a revelation. Because feeding the 5,000 showed his provision, but walking on water showed his authority over creation. His disciples almost missed it because they were focused on the miracle and not the meaning. So yes, Jesus will sometimes send you into these hard parts, the storms that don't make sense. And it might be uncomfortable, but it's not to harm you. It's because there's a revelation of who he really is waiting in the middle of that storm.